So let us implement the last part of the application, which is this circular timer. So we add a new view and call it circle timer. And if you have a look at the working application over here, if we start the timer, we have a circle out here and another circle inside, but we only show the stroke of it. We're not showing the full stroke of the inner circle. And fortunately, that's really easy to do. So these elements here, the outer circle, the inner circle, and then those two text elements, they are stacked on top of each other. So we have to use C-stack to achieve that. So let's start with that. And then we have the background circle. We have the timer circle, let's call it timer circle. And the primary text, the one that displays the seconds left, and the secondary text. So this, obviously, is a circle. There's another circle on top of that. Then there's the text. Let's just add some dummy text here. And the secondary text, which indicates the current mode we're in. Okay. So now let's just, to make things visible, let's add the fills for those circles. So the first circle has the dark color as its fill. And we tune it down a little bit to an opacity of 0.5, just as we did with the button. So the inner circle will not always have its full 360 degrees. We want to change that depending on the amount of time left. And as you remember, we have a fraction property in our business logic, which expresses the fraction left as a number between 0 and 1. And fortunately, Circle has a trim option which works exactly like that. It takes a from 0 and a 2, and here we can set in the fraction, for instance 0.5. This will just cut the circle in half. So now two things we have to correct here, apart from the color. We want some padding from the outer circle, so we can just add that here. And we use the standard of 20. So it moves a little bit in. And also we don't want to start it at 3 o'clock over here to the right. We want to start it at 12 o'clock at the very top. So we can do that either by manipulating that value back here. So we would just, instead of from 0, we put minus 0.25, I guess. But let's just not wrap around our head around things that we don't have to do. Instead, we will just rotate the inner circle. So all we need to do is add a rotation effect. And we init this with degrees. And since we're moving counterclockwise, it's minus 90 degrees. So now it starts at the top. So also we want this to be a stroke and not a filled circle. So we add a stroke here. And this takes a stroke style and a color. So let's just add our color first. And we set the style to a stroke style, and this expects at least a line width, and we also set that to 20. Now, this is not all that pretty here, so instead we have possibility to set the line cap, and we set this to round. And that way it's nicely rounded at its caps. Again, we are going to set the stroke to an opacity of, in this case, around 0.8, so it's not glaringly white. And we also want to add some animation whenever we change the value that you pass here. So what we can do here is we say what kind of animation do we want, or how is it displayed. We use an ease in and out, and we do that on the value 0.5, which makes very little sense because we should have a variable here. So let's just add this variable at the very top. It's a private var, and call it fraction. And it's a double. And let's set that to 0.5. And instead of using the trim as a hard-coded value, we put in the fraction here, and we animate that value. Or we animate whenever that value changes. Okay. Now, the whole thing is sitting at the very edges of the screen, so let's add a padding around the whole thing, like so. Okay, let us continue with the text in the center. First, both of them are going to have the light foreground color. So, color light. This one as well. And we want the bigger of the two texts, the one displaying the number of minutes and seconds left, to sit in the middle, so we don't have to move this around, but we will offset the other one on the x-axis and the y-axis by, say, 50, like so. So it's sitting below the large one. And all that is left to do is changing the font, and we will, let's just add a system with an explicit size, and set its weight to bold or bold, semi-bold, and we want the rounded type of font. Of course, that's a matter of taste, and I won't claim that the UI here is particularly beautiful. We can't just copy paste this for the other text, and here we will change the size to 30. It's a little bit heavy, so let's make that light. And again, we use the rounded type font. Okay. Now, we already added that fraction variable, and we want to be able to also pass in the two texts we display. So make that a var primary text, which is a string, and we get that from the outside, so we won't have a variable but a let. The same holds true, by the way, for the fraction. And we don't have a default value, and we have a secondary text, which is also a string. Now let's, instead of these two hard-coded values, let's just add the primary text here and the secondary text. And the preview is not working like that because it expects those parameters. So the primary text will be, say, 34. And here we say working. There we go.